Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttama-shloke Bhaktir-bhavati Naishtike Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya-manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Svāyambhuva Manu Dadati Sakalam Namaste Saraswate Durve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshakarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. By His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 22, The Marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahūti. So, before we continue, today is a special day because you know that very, very deadly and horrible terror attack is being avenged by Indian Army, and really we are extremely grateful to Indian Army for their activities, for the Operation Sindoor that they have carried out. So let us chant one Hare Krishna Mahamantra to congratulate them, to pray for them, and to bless, empower them by the holy days. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare Ram,
Hare
Ram,
Hare
Ram Hare Hare.
So, in the name of spirituality, devotee cannot be, not being politically alert. This is also very important because if we see the most of the devotees of the Lord, the prime devotees, what to speak of Lord Ram being personally in the politics in the sense that he was himself was the king. Lord Krishna was always into politics, right? And even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you see the top associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, they were the home minister, prime minister of the king. And then we see Jiva Goswami, who had the great expertise to deal with Akbar and the gang. And very dexterously, they found the way to establish Krishna consciousness in very, very awkward situations. So if we see the very close associates of Mahaprabhu, they are all like very greatly into politics. So Maharaj, so politics is not a bad word. Political, okay, playing politics may be different, but politics means being Kshatriya, or the being counselor to the Kshatriya, being mantri to the Kshatriya. So while we transcend the body, while we are not this body, when we are having a particular role and particular varna, one has to play one's part. And we are really very, very happy today, that very delighted that a fitting reply has been given. We don't know what is the future, whether there will be escalation or not. And the name also was very wonderful, Operation Sindoor, okay, which resonates very well to the barbaric activities the Babar and the gang they had done to in the Pahalgam. So back to Bhagavatam, text 28. So now we enter the fifth section of this particular chapter, that is Manu's wonderful rule. Okay, so Manu has, I think we are done with, we are at text 26, Prabhuji.
Yes, 26,
Yeah,
27
okay.
we need to read.
Yeah, we are yet to do, right?
Yes, Prabhuji, we need to do that.
Yeah. Text 26. Amantrям tam munivaram anudnyata sahanugah प्रतस्थे रथमारुह्य सभार्य स्वपुरं नृपः उभयोर्ऋषिकुल्याय सरस्वत्या सुरोधसो ऋषीणामुपशान्तानां पश्यन्नाश्रमसम्पदः.
After asking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, followed by his retinue. Along the way, he saw the prosperity of the tranquil seers' beautiful hermitages on, on both the charming banks of the Saraswati, the river so agreeable to saintly persons. Purport: as cities are constructed in the modern age with great engineering and architectural craftsmanship, so in days gone by there were neighborhoods called Rushikulas, where great saintly persons resided. In India, there are still many magnificent places for spiritual understanding. There are many rishis and saintly persons living in nice cottages on the banks of the Ganges and Yamuna for purposes of spiritual cultivation. While passing through the Rushikulas, the king and his party were very much satisfied with the beauty of the cottages and hermitages. It is stated here, Pashanya, Ashrama Sampadaha. The great sages had no skyscrapers, but the hermitages were so beautiful that the king was very much pleased at the sight. Hare Krishna.
So, after the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahūti, duly according to the Vedic traditions, the king asked the sage the permission of the great sage Kardama and obtained the permission. Okay, asking and obtaining, two words, very important. Asking and obtaining, not just informing. To leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started along with his entourage. And when he came across, he saw the beautiful Paschan Ashrama Sampada, Rishi Sampada. When he saw, he was very pleased at the banks of Saraswati. In the Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada writes, just like modern times there are planned cities, similarly, in the bygone ages, there were Gurukulas, Rishikulas, so on and so forth, which were established in the forest or along the banks of the rivers like Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati for the spiritual learning. And these were very beautiful sight to behold. And when King Manu, when he saw this, Paschan Ashrama Sampada, he was very, very pleased at this sight. So one point to note here is, Devahūti, she remained at the husband's place, that is Kardama Muni, and there is no interference in the, there is no interference from Kardama Muni and, from Manu and Shatarupa later in the life of Devahūti and Kardama Muni. Okay. So this is very important. Modern times, because of hyperconnective world, what happens is, although the daughter is married, the parents, they have so much of a concern for the daughter, or for the son in case of the marriage and something like that, that the although child leaves the house, the parents are not able to leave the child. Of course, that doesn't mean becoming callous, but it also doesn't mean that one should be excessively interfering. Okay, so this is very important thing. Many times we come across counseling where the girl's parents or the boy's parents, they are excessively interfering in the in the couple's life, and that leads to unnecessary troubles. So this is also one learning here from Manu and Shatarupa, that their daughter, Devahūti, and they just followed the custom very well. Text 28. So 28 to 39, this is Manu's wonderful rule. Okay, now we are just going to walk along with Manu and the personality he is. तमायन्तम् अभिप्रेत्य ब्रह्मवर्तात् प्रजापतिम् Gita samstutim vaditrai pratyudyuhu praharshitah.
Translation: overjoyed to know of his arrival, his subjects came forth from Brahmavarta to greet their returning lord with songs, prayers, and musical instruments. Purport: it is the custom of the citizens of a kingdom's capital to receive the king when he returns from a tour. There is a similar description when Krishna returned to Dwarka after the battle of Kurukshetra. At that time, he was received by all classes of citizens at the gate of the city. Formerly, capital cities were surrounded by walls, and there were different gates for regular entrance. Even in Delhi today, there are old gates, and some other old cities have such gates where citizens would gather to receive the king. Here also, the citizens of Barahasmati, the capital of Brahmavarta, the kingdom of Svāyambhuva, came nicely dressed to receive the emperor with decorations and musical instruments. Hare Krishna.
So now the king Svāyambhuva Manu, he returned to his place, Barhishmati, and the citizens were overjoyed upon the arrival of the king. So they greeted the king with the songs, prayers, and the musical instruments. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that this is the custom of the citizens to receive the king upon the arrival, when the king returns from the tour. And similarly, we see very, very beautiful chapter. It is there in Bhagavatam, which talks about arrival of Krishna to Dwaraka. So the consecutive chapters in the first canto, departure of Krishna from Hastinapur, and then immediate next chapter, arrival of Krishna in Dwaraka. Very beautiful chapters, both these are. How the citizens, when Krishna blew the conch, very beautiful verse there, that the white conch and the reddened lips of the Supreme Lord, it appeared like, very beautiful swan just sitting on the lotus of the lips of the Lord. So this is a customary. Previously, the city was the was surrounded by the wall, and there used to be gate. Prabhupada says even in Delhi we have so many gates today. Even in Pune there are so many gates, right? So there is Swar Gate, there is Pool Gate. So Swar Gate was a place where Godeswar used to be there. The and the Pool Gate there was so there are gates like that. Okay. So this was the previous city structure, and this is how the king Svāyambhuva Manu was welcomed at Barhishmati. Text 29. Barhishmati nama puri sarvasampanna samanvitaah nyapatan yatra romani yasyangyam vidhunvatah kushakashasta evasan shashvat dharitavat varchasah ऋषयो वै पराभाव्य यज्ञ ज्ञान यज्ञ मेजिरे. Translation.
The city of Brahishmati, rich in all kinds of wealth, was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Boar. As he shook his body, this very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusha grass and kasha, another kind of grass used for mats, by means of which the sages worshipped Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performance of their sacrifices. Purport: any place directly connected with the Supreme Lord is called Pitasthana. Brahismati, the capital of Svāyambhuva Manu, was exalted not because the city was very rich in wealth and opulence, but because the hairs of Lord Varaha fell at this very spot. These hairs of Lord later grew as green grass, and the sages used to worship the Lord with that grass after the time when the Lord killed the demon Hiranyaksha. Yajna means Vishnu, the supreme person of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, karma is described as yajnartha. Yajnartha karma means work done only for the satisfaction of Vishnu. If something is done for sense gratification or any other purpose, it will be binding upon the worker. If one wants to be freed from the reaction of his work, he must perform everything for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Yajna. In the capital of Svāyambhuva Manu, Brahismati, these particular functions were being performed by the great sages and saintly persons.
Now there is a description of Barhishmati, the capital of King Manu. Barhishmati Namapuri Sarva Sampanna Samanvita. Sarva Sampanna, it was Samanvita, full of all kinds of different wealth and opulences. Nyapadan Yatra Romani, Roma means the hairs, Yatra, where, Yasya Anga, Yagyasya Anga. Yagya is Lord Varaha here, the Lord Viṣṇu, and from the body Anga, the body of Lord Viṣṇu, the Roma, the hair fell at this place and they were expanded as the ever increasing kusha grass, evergreen kusha grass, which were used by later the sages and the hermitages for the yagya. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the place which is directly connected to the Supreme Lord is called as Pithasthana or Tirthasthana or Tirthakshetra, Dharmakshetra. So these are the places which indicate direct connection with the Supreme Lord. And these are very exalted places, not because they are simply rich and prosperous. No, because there is connection with the Supreme Lord. That is the real prosperity. So what is the real Sarva Sampanna? Of course, there was material prosperity, but the real prosperity is connection with, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that was the real prosperity of Barhishmati. So this is the place when Lord Varaha came out and he was just shedding off the water from the body. He just shook his body and, along with the few drops of the water, certain hairs from the body of the Lord Varaha, they also fell down here and they were expanded as kusha grass. And later this green kusha grass were used by the sages to please the Supreme Lord Yagya. Yagyarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. So this is how this city was. And the ruler Manu, he also was a great devotee of the Lord. And this was always happening all around. What was the activity? Yagyarthat karmano anyatra. The great sages and saintly persons and all the citizens of Barhishmati, they were always engaged in spiritual activities. Right? Text 31. Again, now just engaged in spiritual activities doesn't mean they were not engaged in their varnashram. Their varnashram activities were spiritualized by keeping Krishna in the center. Just like Arjuna spiritualized the entire war, the deadly war of Kurukshetra, by keeping Krishna in the center. Right? Text 31. Kushakashamayam barhir astirasya bhagavan manuh avajat yadnya purusham labdva sthanam yato bhuvam. Translate.
Manu spread a seed of kushas and kashas and worshipped the Lord, the personality of Godhead by whose grace he had obtained the rule of the terrestrial globe. Purport: Manu is the father of mankind, and therefore from Manu comes the word man, or in Sanskrit, Manushya. Those who are in better position in the world, having sufficient wealth, should especially take lessons from Manu, who acknowledged his kingdom and opulence to be gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus always engaged in devotional service. Similarly, the descendants of Manu, or human beings, especially those who are situated in well-to-do condition, must consider that whatever riches they have are gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those riches should be utilized for the service of the Lord in sacrifices performed to please Him. That is the way of utilizing wealth and opulence. No one can achieve wealth, opulence, good birth, a beautiful body, or nice education without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, those who are in possession of such valuable facilities must acknowledge their gratefulness to the Lord by worshipping Him and offering what they have received from Him. When such acknowledgement is given either by a family, nation, or society, their abode becomes almost like Vaikuntha, and it becomes free from the oppression of the threefold miseries of this material world. In the modern age, the mission of Krishna consciousness is for everyone to acknowledge the supremacy of Lord Krishna. Whatever one has in his possession must be considered a gift by the grace of the Lord. Everyone, therefore, should engage in devotional service through Krishna consciousness. If one wants to be happy and peaceful in his position, either as a householder or citizen or member of human society, one must promote devotional service for the pleasure of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Manu, he was always engaged in worshipping the Supreme Lord with this kusha and the kasha grass, and very grateful to the Supreme Lord for awarding him that service of being the emperor. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Manu is the father of mankind. From the word Manu comes the word Manava, Manushya, or even man. Okay, this comes from Manu, literally. So Manu means, Manava means, Manushya means descendant of Manu. And here Manu, by his own example, he sets the precedence that whatever opulence one has, whatever wealth one has, it should be used in the service of the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada says, especially those who are having well-to-do conditions, whatever riches they have, they should understand it is gift from the Supreme Lord. Janma Aishwarya Shruta Shribihi. Janma means great birth, good birth. Aishwarya means great wealth. Shrutaha means the education, and Shribihi, the opulence of beauty and other opulences. They all should be considered as the gift of the Supreme Lord. And with a grateful heart, one should offer those gifts back in the service of the Lord. Right. And when there is such a gratitude, when there is such acknowledgement within a family, society, or nation, that literally will transform that family, society, or nation in the abode of Vaikuntha. So gratitude to the Supreme Lord transforms one from material world to the spiritual world. It becomes abode of Vaikuntha. King Manu was always aware of this, and therefore, Prabhupada says, even the mission of Krishna consciousness is also the same. Just to teach people the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and center their life centered around the activities of devotional service. And when one promotes devotional service in this way, for the pleasure of the Lord, there will be all satisfaction in the life of such a devotee. Family, society, or nation. Text 32. Barhishmatim nam vibhurya yam nirvishya samavasat tasyam pravishto bhavanam tapatraya vinashanam. Translation.
Having entered the city of Bahismati, in which he had previously lived, Manu entered his palace, which was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of material existence. Purport: the material world or material existential life is filled with threefold miseries: miseries pertaining to the body and mind, miseries pertaining to natural disturbances, and miseries inflicted by other living entities. Divine society is meant to create a spiritual atmosphere by spreading the spirit of Krishna consciousness. The miseries of material existence cannot affect the status of Krishna consciousness. It is not that the miseries of the material world completely vanish when one takes to Krishna consciousness, but for one who is Krishna conscious, the miseries of material existence have no effect. We cannot stop the miseries of the material atmosphere, but Krishna consciousness is the antiseptic method to protect us from being affected by the miseries of material existence. For a Krishna conscious person, both living in heaven and living in hell are equal. How Svāyambhuva Manu created an atmosphere wherein he was not affected by material miseries is explained in the following verses.
Thus Manu, he entered Barhishmati and he entered his palace. And this palace is known as Tapatraya Vinashanam, that destroyer of the threefold miseries. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that there are three types of miseries. Adhyatmika, coming from body and the mind. Daivika, coming from the higher living entities or the demigods, from the devatas. They are sending some misery because of one's karma. Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika from other living entities. Terrorism is a Adibhautika misery. Okay, terrorist attack is Adibhautika misery. Or biting of a mosquito, or the fear of the snakes. These are all Adibhautika miseries. So these are the three miseries, and that's why we see Durga standing with the threefold Trishula, reminding that this material world is filled with threefold misery. Now, when the human society creates a spiritual atmosphere, the miseries of material existence cannot affect such a personality. Prabhupada writes here very clearly It is not that the miseries of the material world completely vanish when one takes to Krishna consciousness. It is not like that. It is not that devotees doesn't suffer or there are no sufferings in the life of the devotee. This is not, Prabhupada says. But what happens then? But for one who is Krishna conscious, the miseries of the material existence have no effect. But when one is Krishna conscious, his magna chittaha, his mind is saturated with something deeper, something purer, something higher, and therefore these miseries will not have effect on such a personality. Right? There is a very classical statement. Sridhar Swami Maharaj used to say, Prabhupada's disciple, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Okay, when he was diagnosed with a cancer, he used to say this: pain is inevitable, pain is there, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. How much you want to suffer out of this pain, suffering is optional, right? Why? Because the suffering needs mental interpretation. And because the mind of a devotee is always absorbed in, the magna chitta, shoche tato vimukha chetasa indriyartha. And what is that verse? The first line. So, because the mind of a devotee is always absorbed in Krishna's pastimes, magna chitta, this Prahlad Maharaj prayers. So, therefore, the three miseries of the material world, although exist in the life of a devotee, it doesn't affect him or doesn't act on him. So, this is very important. Prabhupada says, for a Krishna conscious person, either living in heaven or hell, he will be there, he will be always living in sublime atmosphere. When Chitraketu was cursed, Chitraketu very happily accepted the curse by Parvati. And then Lord Shiva is glorifying Chitraketu. He's saying, Narayana para sarve na kutaschana bibhyati. Swarga apavarga narakeshu apitulyartha darshanam. Saying, my dear Parvati, look at these devotees of the Lord, Narayana parayana. Na kutaschana bibhyati. They have no fear anywhere. So devotee is never afraid. To the degree we are afraid, to that degree shows that we have no faith in Krishna. Bhayam dvitiyasya abhiniveta. It shows abhinivesh, and it shows that lack of faith in Krishna consciousness. When it was the Second World War and Prabhupada was still a grihastha that time, so all these mock drills were announced, and after the mock drills, really the German bombers used to come, and they used to bomb Calcutta, a part of Calcutta, and Prabhupada was still living in Kolkata. And Prabhupada's very famous anecdote is there that Prabhupada was, frying kachoris. And Prabhupada says, I was frying kachoris for Krishna's pleasure, and there used to be bomb on the top. And, very nicely Prabhupada explains, this is being very nicely covered in Lilamrita. So this is devotee of the Lord. Of course, that doesn't mean that we imitate Prabhupada's this thing, but the point is, one should not have unnecessary fear in one's life. Unnecessary fear indicates two things: abhinivesha, and abhinivesha means deep absorption in the bodily concept, and the second is rakshati iti vishvaso, having less faith in the protection of the Supreme Lord. So this is, so Prabhupada, just one second. So here he says, Prabhupada writes here, either hell or heaven, the devotee of the Lord will be always equipoised. Very beautiful verse this is. Narayana parasarve na kutaschana bibhyati swarga apavarga narakeshu apitulyartha darshanam. Right. Svāyambhuva Manu was created such an atmosphere within the city that the material sufferings, they were completely oblieved of, although they existed. And how he created that atmosphere, that we will see tomorrow. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. So these are the days of wars. We don't know the escalation and everything. Tukaram Maharaj says this very nicely. Ratrandinamha yuddha sa prasanga. And we have all the way more reason to take shelter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, to be very attentive, very punctual every day, without missing the pages of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And this is the guarantee of Bhagavatam. To the degree we absorb ourselves in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we are beginning our day with Bhagavatam. That is such a huge thing. Then we are always ready for facing all the battles, that coming along the day, along the life.
Yes,
Srila
Prabhuji.
Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Thank you,
Prabhupada. Thank you,
Prabhuji. Thank you,
Prabhuji. Hare
Prabhuji. Thank you,
Krishna.
everyone.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.